And now at the 4th spot, we have defenseman Ruslan Salei, who grew up in Minsk, Belarus. Now, he was first originally drafted out of the IHL in 1996 by the Anaheim Ducks at 9th overall. For the first 2 seasons of his career, he was up and down through the minors, and eventually by 1998-99, he was a full-time NHLer. Now, I know how there have been a couple players that have come from Belarus in the past, such as Grabowski and the Kostitsyn brothers, but Ruslan Salei completely knocks this out of the park, and he had 917 games, where the other players had 534 games max, where Grabowski is now out of the league. And it's been a while since we've seen a Belarusian player come into the league and play a prominent role in the team. Up until this year, we're seeing Yegor Sharangovich on the New Jersey Devils, where he just scored first goal, and that's basically what inspired me to make this video. Now, in all of people talk about Salei, even though he was one of the best Belarusian players to ever play the game. But there's a reason for it, mostly because he was just a very solid defensive defenseman who at most put up 32 points in a season. And he's mostly known for shutting down the opponents, and he also scored an OT goal in Game 3 of the 2003 Stanley Cup Finals against the New Jersey Devils. Overall, a very long and successful career. He left the NHL in 2011 after playing his final season on the Detroit Red Wings, and unfortunately he passed away in 2011 on the locomotive plane that unfortunately crashed down. Next up, we have Sannis Ozalen, who was born in Latvia, and he had a very long and respectful career in professional hockey, and was one of the better offensive defensemen in the 90s in the Trap era up until 2004. He was originally drafted 30th overall in the 1991 draft, spent a couple years over in Latvia, and then came over to the IHL and was playing 1 year for the Kansas City Blades. And then once he broke into the league, he had 23 points in 37 games, which is pretty good for playing in the 90s as a defenseman. And eventually, he followed that up, scoring 26 goals and 64 points in 81 games as a sophomore. He played a couple years over in San Jose, eventually got traded to the Colorado Avalanche, where he's mostly known for. And this is where he put up a career high of 68 points in 1996 and 97. He had some excellent playoff performances, 19 points in 22 games in 1996, guiding the Avalanche to the Stanley Cup, and was one of the cornerstone pieces for that team that was so good for at least 5 years in the NHL. And eventually he was also on that 2003 Mighty Ducks of Anaheim team, along with Ruslan Salei, so that's kind of funny. Unfortunately, the Ducks didn't win the Stanley Cup that year, and he spent 2 more years for the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim, and eventually he spent a couple more years in the NHL, but he wasn't really the same, he was approaching 40 years of age. Didn't play in the 2008-9 season, and then eventually went over the KHL, played 5 years over there, and was actually in the Olympics at 42 years of age in 2014, which honestly wasn't that long ago. And plus, he was that captain of the Latvian team who almost upset Team Canada. Now, I was surprised to see how many players have had some success in the NHL as Latvian players, but Sannis Ozalen knocked it out of the water. He had 564 points in a total of 875 games, and honestly, injuries kind of hindered his career. He could have been a very good player in the NHL. I mean, I'm not saying he was a bad player by any means, but I'm just saying it's possible he could have been a legend in the game if he played for just a little longer. And finally, for the last player we're going to talk about is Ruslan Fedotenko, who came out of Ukraine, out of the city of Kyiv. Or Kiev, I don't really know which one was the correct pronunciation. Now, unlike a lot of these other players in this video, he was actually undrafted. He was supposed to be drafted in 1997, played in the Finnish League that year, no one took him out of the NHL, went over to the SJHL, didn't get drafted again, and then went over to the USHL, put up 77 points in 55 games as a 20-year-old, and then eventually was signed by the Philadelphia Flyers as a free agent. Spent 1 year in the AHL, played pretty well there, and then put up 36 points in 74 games as a rookie in 2000-2001. Now, Fedotenko was never a star in the NHL, but he still managed to put up 366 points, including 173 goals in 863 games. At the same time, though, he also did get 2 Stanley Cups in 2004 with the Tampa Bay Lightning and in 2009 with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, in a lot of his stats in the playoffs, most of the time he underperformed. A lot of the time he was held to 1 or 0 points. But it's probably no coincidence that he did step up his game in 2009 and 2004, propelling those 2 teams to win the Stanley Cup. And I mean, when you look at the 2004 Stanley Cup winner, the Tampa Bay Lightning, He scored the 2 goals to win them that Game 7 against the Calgary Flames. And that's basically all he's known for, but he also played a long career in the NHL despite going undrafted. He's probably not the best player to come out of Ukraine. I mean, there's Dmitry Kristich and Alexei Ponikarovsky, but I still want to throw him into this video because of that Game 7 performance. For the most part of his career, he was basically a third liner who could move up and down your lineup if you played him on a top line with Sidney Crosby or Vinny Lecavalier per se. But he did retire in 2016 and now is a dual citizen in between Ukraine and the United States.
Now, I always find it super interesting how a player can come from a non-traditional hockey market, come over to the NHL and play a really big role in the best league in the world. And you could have a player who has a long career in the NHL that's going to make a significant impact on future generations and if they want to decide to play hockey or another sport. I mean, you just look at Anze Kopitar. Down the line, after this guy's career is done, you might see a wave of new Slovenian hockey players who were drafted in the first round possibly, or just in the later rounds, because this guy has carried the country on his back, and you saw what he did in the 2014 Olympics. And I hope that hockey can grow a little more outside of Canada, US, and Europe, because I think this is a great sport, and I just hope that one day this sport can become like a worldwide sport that everyone has a fair chance in any competition. Anyway, that's it today for this video. Please leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe if you have not, and I will see you guys in the next video.